everybody. I'll be talking about importance of fluorescein angiography in diabetic retinopathy. Is my screen visible, Dr. Sunil?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, now it's visible. Please go ahead.
Okay. So fluorescein angiography is one of the most important investigations that is available for assessment of diabetic retinopathy, and in fact, it was one of the first investigation which was studied in depth when it came to management of diabetic retinopathy. Fluorescein angiography by itself has, in a way, changed significantly, and in a way, not changed since 1959 when Novotny and Alvin described use of fluorescein in assessment of retinal, in retinal angiography. The basic principles of the procedure still remain the same. 1 second. Yeah, so the basic principles of injection still remain the same. Fluorescein dye is injected, which is then stimulated by passing the light through excitation filter, and the reflected energy, emitted energy, is captured on the film using the barrier filter. The excitation energy is 460 nanometers, while emission is in green spectrum of 515 nanometers. The dye tends to remain, doesn't cross the blood retinal barrier. That's why it tends to remain in the within the intravascular compartment and in the choroid. Does not leak through the choroid through the RP tight junctions. So it gives us good view of the retinal vasculature, but not suitable for choroidal imaging. We all know about various phases of fluorescein angiography, so I'll skip that and let us go to commonly seen lesions in diabetic lesions on fluorescein angiography. They are the most common ones: microaneurysms and intraretinal hemorrhages, which may be difficult to detect or separate in clinical examination. But the microaneurysms are localized capillary dilatation, which appear as small hyperfluorescent dots, while the intraretinal hemorrhages, which may be dot or blotch shaped or flame shaped depending on their depth in the retina, they appear as hypofluorescent spots. The hard exudates, they are extracellular lipid leaked. It is often associated with retinal edema and may be available in the form of clumps or circinates around the cluster of microaneurysms. Principally, they are seen in macular region, and then they form plaque in macular region in late stages, which affects the vision of the patient. They appear as hypofluorescent spots, while the plaques, they tend to stain in late stages and appear as hyperfluorescent. The capillary non-perfusion areas, they appear as hypofluorescent lesion in the mid-peripheral retina. They are usually surrounded by, these are islands of hypofluorescence surrounded by sea of the normal capillary hyperfluorescent capillary networks. The intraretinal microvascular anomaly, or IRMA, appears in areas of capillary dilatation and intraretinal new vessel formation. They appear as hyperfluorescent lesions, as we can see in the area where the arrows are there. They, unlike neovascularizations, they do not leak. Venous beading changes, they appear in later stages of the diabetic retinopathy, and beading is a sign which is suggestive of diffuse retinal ischemia, as can be seen in this particular angiogram. The neovascularization elsewhere, neovascularization anywhere, is a progressive ischemia which leads to development of anomalous vessels on the retinal surface, and they appear as grossly hyperfluorescent due to leakage of dye. If that happens on the retinal elsewhere other than the optic nerve head and 1 disc diameter away from it, it's called as neovascularization elsewhere, while at the optic nerve or 1 disc diameter around it is usually neovascularization at disc. This is an image of neovascularization at disc with extensive capillary non-perfusion and ischemic retina here. The laser spots, they might sometimes be mistaken. So they are the areas of block fluorescence which surrounded by hyperfluorescent borders. We can see many skip lesions in the fluorescein angiogram here, and presence of persistent neovascularization despite laser, which warrants additional laser in such cases. Coming to stages of diabetic retinopathy, so it is 0, 1, 2. It's divided into mild, moderate, severe diabetic retinopathy and proliferative diabetic retinopathy, and macular edema 0 or 1. So mild NPDR, where there are a few microaneurysms which might be seen more on fluorescein angiography. Moderate NPDR, where there is presence of clumps of microaneurysms which are more than and some hemorrhages which are more than mild but doesn't really fit into severe diabetic retinopathy. Then there is a severe diabetic retinopathy where 4-to-1 rule is followed, where there are extensive changes throughout the fundus which can be seen. While the proliferative diabetic retinopathy is presence of neovascularization elsewhere along with or at the disc along with the capillary non-perfusion areas. The high risk PDR, where there is the neovascularization disc is large or there is presence of pre-retinal hemorrhage. And then there is a vitreous hemorrhage which requires extensive management. Diabetic maculopathy might be focal or diffuse depending on the clusters of microaneurysms and their spread from the leakage site. Ischemic maculopathy, which can be seen on the fluorescein angiogram with enlargement and distortion of FAZ. This is one of the most important reasons why fluorescein angiography should be done. A patient may have fairly good visual acuity even in presence of early ischemic maculopathy, and which can progress post-treatment and leading to drop in visual acuity. So unless you have a fluorescein angiograph at presentation, you might miss this finding and that can lead to problems at later stage. Now this angiography can be fluorescein or OCT angio when it comes to macular lesions, but for peripheral retina, the dye-based angiography is probably the better choice. And we will hear more about macular lesions, I'm sure, from Dr. Sunil in his talk on OCT angio. So this is an example of a fluorescein angiogram of a patient where we can see 45-degree area. This is one of the problems or one of the limitations, not problems, the limitations of traditional fluorescein angiography is we can see only limited area, about 45 degrees, while the retinal imaging can be extended up to 200 degrees. Here we can see the lesions at the posterior pole quite well, but even with the traditional fundus cameras with the newer softwares, we can get image, montage image fairly easily without too much of hassle and effort, and it gives up to 100 degree of peripheral retinal imaging. Here we can see the montage image gives us much better idea about capillary non-perfusion areas. So if you are just going to go by the clinical picture, we would miss these peripheral lesions, and this patient would actually require very close monitoring. This patient, if not angiography is not done, it might be missed and patient might come with advanced lesions at later stage. These are the 7 subfields which are defined by ETDRS study, and these are the montage pictures which can help us, or they were used for grading of diabetic retinopathy in ETDRS study. In the past, with older film-based cameras, it would take a lot of effort to take these pictures, but it is, as we can see, it is much easier to be done, easier to do now with modern cameras. So, but it is not as good as ultra-wide field cameras which are available to us. This is a wonderful, beautiful image of taken with Mirante system by Dr. Unnikrishnan Nair of Chaitanya Hospital, and it gives us almost aura to aura view of in single shot. So this is the beauty of ultra-wide field angiography, which gives us much large. Yeah, just it will take a minute.
So sure.
Ultra-wide field imaging gives us much wider field of view, and we can see all the stages of fluorescein angiography in single frame. And with the modern systems, we can get up to 200 degrees of retinal surface in single shot. The image time acquisition is reduced. Reduced patient compliance is required. Transient images can be obtained and include peripheral pathology. There is fluorescein angiography is consistent in all images phases, and no montage artifacts are there. This is an image by Dr. Darius Schroff, which gives us idea of how wide the field can be and how much lesions that we are missing with the just central 7 subfield images. So we can see a whole lot of peripheral peripheral CNP areas, and which are not lasered. It gives us ability to show more retinal pathology in eye judged by 7 subfields. Peripheral non-perfusion can be picked up and neovascularizations, and the current data suggests that these ultra-wide field images give additional and more extensive PDR pathologies. DR lesions captured by these images likely to carry prognostication value in terms of PDR development. So to conclude, fluorescein angiography in diabetic retinopathy is alive and kicking, and it must be done at baseline, in my opinion. It is essential in diagnosis, grading and treatment, planning and prognostication. And color fundus and OCT alone may underdiagnose early PDR cases and lead to disasters at later stage. Ultra-wide field is a revolutionary technology, which might still be expensive technology at the time, but as the time passes, it will become available to all of us. But it is helpful in diagnosing far peripheral retinal pathologies and alter treatment protocols in year to come, which I am sure of. Thank you for your attention, and thank you, Dr. Sunil, for giving me opportunity to speak in this wonderful seminar.